Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin in Tucson, Arizona, saying hi, and let's have a great day today talking about Bullion, the Bullion market update. Real quick, I just want to say thank you to everyone for watching, especially you silent stalkers out there. I know there are a lot of you who don't actually comment or like or anything, and I get that. Thanks for watching anyways, I appreciate it. And also, just so you know, if you found some of our content interesting, we do actually launch videos 6 days a week at noon Tucson time. So stop back on by and find us, because the algorithm won't always tell you that we are here, even if you have hit the subscribe button. That's just kind of how the YouTube works right now, and there's not a whole lot that we can do to change that, but I appreciate you stopping in. Also, one more housekeeping note from the time this video is being posted in 2024. We are a few days away from the Central States show in Schaumburg, so that's just outside of Chicago. So May 1 through 4, for those of you who are going to be within a 5-hour drive, stop on by. That is 5.5 hours. Sorry, I'm not going to see you. But come on by and stop at the show. It's like 300 plus dealers. It's a good time. Spend a couple days in Schaumburg and enjoy the scenery. Now, on to the topic du jour, which is the silver market is actually silver is actually less expensive than it was a year ago. And that's the main topic here. Of course, there's a lot of little subtopics that come off of that. And so for those of you who follow the silver market or you've seen what's been going on, I'm going to talk about both gold and silver and a little bit about some of the historical context of where we're at and maybe where we're headed, but also just a little bit about philosophy of having metals and not having metals. So I looked up a year ago to see what was going on, and a year ago spot price was 25 on silver, and actually gold had just hit 2,000 for a couple of days right in there. So we had 2,000 gold and we had $25 an ounce silver, and as of this recording we've got 27 plus on silver and we've got 2,300 plus on gold. So you can see we've got a pretty good movement on both of those. And for those of you who are living in the now, of course, gold has made a big move in the last month or so, and silver quite a bit of a move. And so it's actually caused a lot of people to pause, especially on gold, but even on silver, people have kind of paused on buying silver. And what I find interesting about that is that silver is actually less expensive today than it was a year ago, because the premiums are radically different. Now, some of you may have just started getting into gold and silver, don't know what the premium is. Usually when we talk about the premium, we talk about how much it'll cost you as a retail consumer buying something over the counter at your local shop, or maybe at an online, one of these SD Bullion, APMEX kind of places, and just, what's out there and how much is it going to cost you. And so this is where we learn a little bit about the fact that there's the availability in the actual purchasing of gold and silver versus the actual spot price. Those are two very different things, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But for the actual numbers, the things that's really interesting to me is, so silver a year ago, 90% US silver coin, so that's the old, sometimes people call it constitutional, the old quarters and dimes and whatnot. Those coins, I could sell those to a dealer at $6 or $7 per ounce premium. Now that was like the wholesale level, and so they would have cost you as a retail customer probably $8, $9 over spot, putting you at somewhere around that $33 to $34 range. Well, currently, if you go around, you can probably find 90% US silver coin at $1 or $2 over spot, and sometimes if someone's got a bunch of it, probably just at melt. So you're talking about spending at $27, $28, $29 versus that $33 to $34 range. And so it's actually much cheaper than it was a year ago to purchase. When you look at your 1 ounce silver rounds, also, those would cost me, if I had to order them wholesale, $4 over spot. So we were getting 5 or 6 over. I think we were getting 6 at the time. So that would have been 25 plus 6 is going to be 31. And now at 27, we're at plus 2 currently in the store. In most places, you'll find it plus 1 to plus 2, something like that. If I get a bunch, and it'll be a little bit less. So 27 plus 2, so 29. So once again, you're still a good, almost a 10% cheaper than you were a year ago. What's really interesting to me is watching the silver eagle prices change. The proof silver eagles, I should say, really fascinating. But silver eagles also in general, remember paying $8 or $9 an ounce premium, $10 an ounce premium on silver eagles. We've been pricing them retail in the store at $4 over, and actually discounting them to $3.50, $3 sometimes, depending on what the market is. So that puts you at $30 to $31. versus 25 plus 8, which is 33 plus, right? So everything in that silver is very consistently different. Proof Silver Eagles is another thing. The Proof Silver Eagles, those coins were trading in the $75 to $85 range, and now they're, I think, in the $50 range. They've dropped back quite a bit. Something that we didn't really talk about or predict necessarily on the channel because I just didn't talk about it, but also if you've heard us talk about pre-COVID pricing, we kind of predicted what we are seeing currently, which is to say the prices of gold and silver, the premiums, so what you have to pay for something, would come back down eventually because there's only so many people that can support that marketplace. And so we are back to pre-COVID numbers on a lot of the stuff that's out there in the marketplace. One of the things that's more interesting here about gold is that, gold, proof gold eagles, once again, here's another area of the market where you had huge premiums with gold at $2,000 an ounce. Proof gold eagles were trading at like $700 premiums for a while. Yeah. So like $2,700. And now I think the premium's almost completely gone. So you're talking about looking at maybe a couple $100 over per ounce. So that'll still put you, instead of 2,700 range, it'll put you in the 2,500 range. So all over the place as far as, what those premiums are versus the actual spot price. So why does this matter? Well, what's interesting to me is that we've seen a slowdown in both gold and silver buying, which of course is one of the reasons why the premiums drop, because people actually react in real supply and demand terms. Silver, if you've been buying silver though, so our philosophy is still for metals. For me, my philosophy, I'll say, is, metals are a savings account and an emergency fund and a hedge against inflation long term. It's not something that you're waiting to see numbers change radically. Now, I have 25 years of experience doing this, plus my experience of dealing with people who are much older than me. And so that's where I kind of come to some of my philosophies on this stuff. So my philosophy generally is I'm kind of the everyday man idea, which is if every paycheck you get an ounce of silver or 2 ounces of silver, you should still be buying right now in this market. That was the next question that people asked. Ben, should I be buying? Because at the last coin show we went to, I saw a lot of people saying, I'm not touching gold right now. Well, could gold be 4,000 in a few years? Sure, it could, but how are people actually reacting to the actual prices is very interesting to see. But at a minimum, if you want in the long term to have gold and silver, the philosophy is you're actually kind of buying at any price point, just dependent upon how much money you have and what your income is. So if you've decided I'm going to spend $50 a paycheck on metals, then you're probably going to be buying silver, and you're going to be probably buying, an ounce to 2 ounces per paycheck. And if silver goes up high enough, let's just say you're spending the $30 and getting 2 ounces, $60, 30 times 2. And let's just say silver goes up to $60 and you decide, you know what, I'm still going to spend the $60. Well, then you're just going to be buying 1 ounce at a time, right? So if you are someone who's in their 40s and younger, I'm just using a random number here, you're probably going to be someone in your 70s and older at some point in time. The question is whether or not you want to have saved something by then. The question is not whether or not, well, gold's 27, it's going to be 42, and now we're going to do this, and da-da-da. And so when you see the guys who post on the internet, and they're constantly posting like the current spot price, a lot of these guys just kind of think it's all about the spot price. Well, the spot price is meaningless if you're sitting on the sidelines cheering, right? So also, those guys tend to be kind of like the gloom and doomers, like it's the end of the world, see, I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing. And it's really kind of a silly thing. It's like pointing at the scoreboard in the middle of the game, and then, what happens at the end of the game is what matters, right? So if you've decided to have assets and you've decided, I don't want to spend all of my money because that's a bad idea, I just generally look at, there's very few things that are kind of inflationary, right? And so that's going to be real estate and your other physical assets you may have. Some of you may have some guns or some jewelry, but buying jewelry at retail, by the way, bad idea. That won't really help you much. Maybe you're into some other collectibles, watches and stuff. And for those of you who collect coins, I'm allergic to the term investment with coins because I don't view them that way. But also, after doing this for 25 years, I just think about guys who are buying stuff for 40 or 50 years. And certainly the things they're buying, they kept buying at higher and higher prices, and they cringed the whole way up. But also, all that stuff they bought when they were younger has gone up in value too. So most of them, as a coin philosopher friend of mine would say, is I've never met a broke coin collector. Most of them over a 30 or 40-year period, it was in a way an investment in the fact that they actually have an asset that you can turn around and have a value in, which is very, very different than the average American, right? So, just taking that long-term perspective, when I started doing this, silver was like $4 an ounce, and silver dollars, old silver dollars, common date ones were $5. And then I get these collections in, and you'll see people paying $1.25 for old silver dollars. And the reality is we can cringe at paying, 25 or $30 for silver, but also in 40 years, what's it going to be, right? So don't listen to the guys who say, the end of the world, the dollar's pegged to this, the dollar's pegged to that. It's all going to, let's just look at kind of a track record and say, okay, I know that I can buy silver consistently over time and still end up with a good asset base. And on the positive side, especially if you're buying for a 20, 30, 40-year period, those people have always come out okay, because inflation is inevitable. And so when you hear people complain about inflation, it's a little bit like people complaining about the summer heat in Tucson. Like, oh, it's hot today. It's Tucson, people. Come on. Like, who expected us to not have inflation? That's the question here, right? So anyways, enough of a rant. You can leave your comments down below. If you've got in mind to buy metals, it's still a fine time to buy metals. The premiums are back down. I don't know if gold from 2,300 is going to go back down. It may come on back down to 2,000 again over the next months, or maybe after the election. But once again, we're not talking about looking at life in a 1-year window or a 6-month window. We've got 70 to 80 years if God gives us strength. So, let's think about it that way. And for those of you who are 70 or 80 and, maybe it's a good time to sell your stuff. That's a different discussion. We're talking about the market and for people who are still looking at buying. But another discussion for another day. All right, I found a pencil. This is exciting. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.